As the SailGP fleet arrived in Sydney for the third event of Season 6, there was confusion. One big collision, a long list of questions, and few official answers. Uncertainty surrounded the start to Sydney. What were the plans going forwards? Plus, how the French wreck was rebuilt as a mast maker turned boat builder.
The drama in Auckland had left many shaken. Be they sailors or spectators, the spine-chilling collision had come perilously close to tragedy. But 2 weeks later, the incident seemed to have left more questions than answers. While some crews expressed hope that changes would be made to ensure this never happened again, there was no official or public response, other than a report on the incident itself. Those that had witnessed the collision that left 2 members in hospital could only hope that moves were being made behind the scenes to minimise the risk going forwards. But on the outside, we knew very little. What we did know was that after 2 events, 2 teams would not be taking part in Sydney. The start of the season may have kicked off with 13 boats, but it was now back down to 11. The Kiwis confirmed that they would be absent, but didn't say what this meant for the Blackfoils team. And for a team that was among the favourites for this season, to have 2 major collisions in consecutive events was surely a devastating blow. On the scoreboard, they now had 15 penalty points in total, 7 from Perth and 8 from Auckland. Their skipper, Peter Burling, had also collected his own personal black marks as he became the first crew in SailGP to receive penalty points on the newly introduced F50 Super licence. This is a mandatory certificate for anyone who wants to race or train aboard an F50. There are provisional and full licences designed to ensure a number of factors, including strengthening safety standards, according to the website. The demerit system sees points placed on the licence for unsafe or unprofessional conduct, and if sailors hit 15 points, they can face suspension. Burling is believed to have received 3 points after the Perth collision, but we don't know how many he may have received for the latest one. And while he may be a long way from the upper limit, it's clearly not a good look for a well-known and talented sailor. This is someone who has multiple World Championships and Olympic titles and has lifted the America's Cup 3 times in a row. In the team press conference several days after the Auckland event, nothing was said about the penalty points. But as Burling stood alongside his long-term sailing partner Blair Tuke and described what led to the collision blow by blow, he also mentioned a system limit that had prevented them from reducing the lift on the leeward foil. The limit is used to prevent a foil creating high levels of downforce that might break the boat. But in this case, it sounded like the limiter meant that the Kiwis couldn't get the boat back down in the water.
We ended up high on the foil and sliding sideways. And then we hit a system limit, which drastically escalated that situation. Then we had to take a kind of quite drastic action to avoid the Italian boat to leeward, which led to us touching down, and then obviously the incident followed that. Well, the boat was working as it should work. Yeah. We, as I said before, hit a system limit when we were high on the foil, so I think there's a combination of a lot of factors that led to this, but definitely in the seconds before the incident, the system limit drastically escalated the situation, which meant we had to take a pretty evasive action to avoid the Italians to leeward.
But when a summary of the official SailGP findings was revealed, there was no mention of this, which does make you wonder what's going on between the team and the event. In fact, the report states that there was no malfunction of the boat or its systems that contributed to the collision. So does this mean that the collision was entirely operator error? As you would imagine, we asked SailGP for comments on this and other questions surrounding the incident, but were told that no one was available for comment. So 10 days after Auckland, while we know a bit more about the detail of how foils let go and allowed the boat to spin up into the path of the French, we know nothing of any plans to reduce the risk in the future. The next time any comment was made in public was at the press conference in Sydney, where French skipper Quentin Delapierre confirmed that crew member Manon Odenay was in recovery after spending 2 weeks in hospital.
I know Manon pretty well. She's already focused on what happened next, and she's moving on. The team is just providing the support and the monitoring she needs to make sure the recovery will be okay. And I also want to thank the work of the Chief Marshal and the safety team for what they did after the crash. I think they did a really good job. Both boats were not in a good shape, and just bring back everything on shore. The 2 athletes were secured at the hospital quite quickly, so yeah, really appreciate it.
Russell Coutts confirmed that the response to the incident was ongoing and that they were seeking to improve things as well as looking at possible developments in design and protection for the crew.
Of course, in these situations, when you review them, there's always things that in the communication or in the response that you can then learn from to apply in the future, and that's what this is really the focus has been about. So trying to improve our processes, and if you look at where we've come from as a sport over the last 5 years, I think we've come a long way. I'm not sure if you had have taken it back to, for example, 2017, I'm not sure that we would have been able to respond as well as that back then. Then, of course, on the other side, there's also possible design pieces that we could implement to try and make the boats safer. So the engineers are going through that now. That's a more involved process than what some people might imagine. You know, you've got to go through it in quite some detail. There are certain things that you can, for example, model with finite element analysis, and there are others that you might have to do actually some more physical testing. But that may involve and will likely involve in the future modifications to the boat. Going back, you may make some modifications to the control system. You may make some modifications to help protect the athletes if you have an impact like that, or even the clothing that they wear, or the impact, the treatment of the impact, both on the boat and with their clothing. So there's a lot to go through, but I'm very confident that we've got very good people on the case, and I think even the actions taken this weekend, I think, are a big step forward.
Split fleet racing was also discussed.
Well, we were always looking at the split fleet format, and it's no secret that we've been trialling that in practice and getting ready for next season, when we will split the fleet for every event, when we add the 14th theme. To be frank, splitting the fleet may not wouldn't remove all the risk of a situation like Auckland happening. That situation could equally happen with two or three boats. But splitting the fleet definitely reduces congestion on certain areas of the course, as well as some of the other initiatives that have already been taken by race management. The geometry of the course, the length of the legs, the distance between the gates, and so forth. There's been a lot of steps taken to address those areas of the race course that you are going to get quite high congestion. And of course the weather conditions come into that as well. So the race management team of Ian Murray and Melanie Roberts, they've been looking at that and written some guidelines around how they make decisions around that. So I think that those are all positive steps, and will make the sport safer. Will it remove all risk? It won't, of course not, but it's definitely taking some pretty significant steps to make it safer.
You have to feel for the French. They've been tipped by many of the pundits as being a team to watch out for some time. But the rug had been pulled out from under their feet in Auckland. There is, however, a ray of hope for Delapierre's team in that they'll be getting their boat back for the 4th event in Rio. I say their boat, it's actually a hybrid, part Kiwi and part French, after Auckland-based Southern Spars rebuilt a new boat out of the 2 badly damaged ones. Now, you may be wondering how a mast maker became a boat builder. So to find out, I called up Southern Spars boss Mark Hauser.
We put our hand up to help Russell and the SailGP guys after the the horrible crash that they had on Saturday. So that boat arrived last Tuesday, or the pieces of the boat. So we had French hull, French beams, and the one of the New Zealand hulls, live ocean hulls. So so the first stage of that was obviously to unload it, get it in the factory. There was quite a bit of damage to the socket on the New Zealand boat where the beam goes in. So that was the first thing for us to do, was to ultrasound that area. That could have been a showstopper because of the structure in that area. So if the damage had gone deep into that hull, it would have been a very challenging fix. But we ultrasounded it and found that it wasn't bad at all. So it meant we could really charge into it, and it was just a repair of the fibre on top of that socket. And then the boats actually went together. We dry fitted them, and they went together reasonably well. So that meant we could, it's been quite we're into paint now, and it's gone fairly well. Luckily, there was no real significant structural damage. There was a lot of damage, obviously, but that's been able to be repaired. And the boat looks good. So we're a week ahead of schedule at the moment. So that's then SailGP guys are looking at the logistics of when it goes and where it goes.
Crikey. I mean, that's one hell of a job. I mean, like, quite a few people who perhaps maybe don't know your business quite so well will be surprised to hear that a spar maker is now a boat builder. But that's not such a strange thing for you guys, is it?
No, it's not, because actually the boat that's in here was the boat that we built. We built that boat. Yeah, we built that boat for the America's Cup for New Zealand when they won it in Bermuda. So it was quite good to get it back in the building. So we built that boat before. And we do a lot of composite work and many things other than marine. So it wasn't something that was challenging for us at all.
Really, that's amazing. And is it true to say that, with those multi-hulls, we are looking at basically carbon tubes, albeit large diameter carbon tubes. And of course, that is your bread and butter for mast making. Is it similar technology? Is that what makes it easier to get your head around, or is it more basic than that?
No, it's very similar. I mean, we've got some massive booms in here at the moment. You could mistake them for the catamaran hulls. So it's all similar. It's composite work. It's nothing unusual to us at all.
They are also incredibly complex boats inside, with all kinds of electronics and hydraulics and the rest of it, which we could see hanging out the bottom of certainly the Kiwi boat when it was craned out. It looked horrendous. How much has that been a challenge? Because you've had to sort of take all that out. Presumably you're not replacing that. Someone else is going to fit that side of it.
Yeah, no, we haven't been focused on that. And I think that the SailGP tech teams will deal with that. Once we get this paint out of the way, then they'll come in. And I think a lot of that will be completed where the boat ends up.
Yeah. Every time we see a big crunch, I mean, thankfully they don't happen very often. I'm not just thinking about SailGP. Actually, I suddenly had flashbacks to Vestas when she went up on the bricks in that round the world. I mean, that was an unbelievable mess, and I went to go and see that being rebuilt. And one of the things that strikes me, and I'm sure strikes lots of other people that are watching it and looking at that, thinking, how on earth can you repair a boat like? Well, one, how can you repair a boat like that? But two, obviously you can. But how much more weight does it put on? Or can you actually get it down to the original weight?
You probably don't get it back to the original weight, but it's close, because you're replacing the damaged fibre with good fibre. So you're really just replacing what was there. There's a little bit of extra taping and things like that, but there won't be significant weight changes to the boats.
Well, that's amazing. That is amazing.
I think I was talking to actually Jimmy Spittle about it the other day, and he was saying that you don't notice the difference in the boats. They're still they're still very even. So a lot of those boats have had a fair bit of work on it. So I think it's a sign of the tech guys that are working on it and the work that gets done. But I don't, the boats are still in very good shape.
And did you have to work a 24-hour shift to get to that stage?
No, we didn't work 24 hours, but we run this place with 2 shifts. We have one shift that starts at 11 in the morning and finishes at 2:15 in the afternoon, and then another shift comes in until 11:30. So there has been big hours on it, and 7 days, but it has gone very well.
Yeah, well, it's amazing. I mean, well done for doing it. It's absolutely incredible. I know I shouldn't be surprised, but I am.
We like these challenges, and it's easy in a factory like this with a good team around it. So,
well, you've taken the words right out of my mouth, because the last thing I was going to say to you is, I know you well enough, we know each other well enough, that I know you absolutely love a challenge. Is what you were telling me last year, but my goodness, you picked a challenge this time. But well done.
Yeah, well, thank you. Thanks.
But not everyone was seeing the drama as a problem going forwards. Some believe that the collision was part of the risk that sailors take when they sign up for boats that foil at 50 knots. Few crew were saying this publicly, but there were some. But others were talking of the dark days in motorsport before significant rule changes were made to improve safety. So whatever the view, it looks likely that the issues will continue. As I mentioned earlier, we did ask for a comment from SailGP, but were told that no one was available for comment. Meanwhile, Sydney looks set to deliver its own set of challenges. After all, it usually does.
The forecast was for 7 to 12 knots of breeze, and while the boats were using their 24-metre wings, their J1 jibs and light weather foils, little could make up for the shifty and patchy nature of the breeze. At the start, it was the Danish and British teams that got the leap on the fleet off the line, with the Australians in hot pursuit. And with a few shuffles throughout the race, it was these 3 that took the podium places, with the Australian Flying Roos delivering a win, the Danish Rockwell team in second, and Emirates Great Britain in third. Race 2 saw the Swiss dive in from the top at the start to drive over the fleet, with the Spanish and Brazilians chasing. As the breeze got more fickle, staying on the foils was the big challenge. Fall off them and you were dumped. And by the end of the race, there'd been a shuffle with a Spanish win, the Swiss in second and the Americans in third. Then, in the break between races, a short feature on the technical developments that were underway following Auckland. Alex Reed, the Director of Performance Engineering, said that the flight controller software aboard the F-50 Cats had now been modified to detect when the boat is sliding sideways and would allow more negative lift on the foil to be achieved. He went on to say that they wouldn't know whether it would work until the next time a boat took a major sideways slide. So had Burling been right after all? On day 2 of racing in Auckland, and shortly after the start, Phil Robertson and the Italian team appeared to suffer a similar sideways skid on the same leg of the course, before then rounding up. They too appeared to have lost control, and also had someone to windward and behind. Thankfully, the Brazilians were far enough away to avoid them. After racing, Robertson explained how easy it is to lose control.
The idea is to keep these boats as flat as possible, and as soon as you start to get a little bit of leeward heel, it gets pretty difficult to get it back under control. And with these little wings as well, you actually start easing, and then the sheet goes slack, and the wings you got too much pressure behind the wing to actually ease it anymore. So you can't flatten these boats. Well, the only way out of it is to turn up or bear away, and when there's boats around you, that's not an option, and when you're on the reach, it's the hardest possible moment to pick it out as well.
Meanwhile, back in Sydney, in the light shifty breeze, there were no control issues, although the crew had been reduced to 4. Instead, second-guessing the breeze was the big deal for all. In a slow start for most of the fleet, there was drama aplenty in the opening seconds.
3 boats were over the line, 2 had to bail out of their start, and 2 more were extremely late. The chaos left the door wide open for the Spanish, who cruised to a win. The final race of the day was no easier. Emirates Great Britain got the jump at the start and led for some time, but were overtaken by the Australians when they fell off their foils after the breeze shut down. From there, the news just got worse for the Brits, and by the end it was a win for the Australians, a second for Germany, and third for the Americans. Going into day 2, the Spanish were leading overall, with the Australians in second and the Swedish Artemis team in third. But a forecast of even lighter, trickier breezes of just 4 to 8 knots, no one was taking anything for granted. At times it was as painful to watch as it must have been to compete, as the fickle breeze made a lottery of the racecourse. The start was agonising as the fleet drifted over the line. The Swiss and the Danish were the first 2 teams at Mark 1. Gate 2 saw a big shuffle as the British pushed through to the front. And in the short 4-leg race, they kept their lead with the Spanish in second and the Americans in third. Race 6 wasn't much different when it came to the pace. The American team were first out of the traps and were never challenged. Germany finished second and the Danes in third. Conditions for the final fleet race didn't get any better. In fact, a huge wind shift to the left turned it into a short procession. But this time it was the Danes that got out in front and stayed there to take the win. The Italians were second and North Star Canada in third. All of which meant that going into the final, it would be the Americans, British and Spanish to fight it out for the Sydney event win. Getting to the first mark was considered to be the key to the day. And while it was neck and neck between the British and American teams to start with, it was Taylor Canfield's team that took the upper hand before going on to take their first event win since 2024. The British were second and the Spanish Los Galos third.
Oh, mad dog. Yeah, we've been putting in the effort, and we said we're going to stick to our process, and that showed that we're getting better and improving all the time, and yeah, to get a win, it's huge. Yeah, a tricky racetrack, but we came into the day with a really good plan, and we knew we just had to keep the pedal down, stay in clean air, stay out of the packs. Our starting's always been pretty good in the lighter conditions, so we got off the line well, and heads out of the boat, and we did a nice job. So a lot less jet lag for us, so that's exciting. But yeah, overall, it's been a great series down here in the Southern Hemisphere, but we're looking to get back home.
So in the overall rankings, the British continue their lead, with the Bonds Flying Ruse 3 points behind in second, and the US SailGP team 5 points behind them in third, on equal points with the French. The next stop is Rio de Janeiro on the 11th to 12th of April.